Okay, I'm with
Ashley Young.
and you're with the movie A Time to Swim.
Yes.
And you are the filmmaker, so you followed the subject family along. Tell us about your film and what the subject matter is.
My film follows Mutang Urud, an indigenous leader from Sarawak, Malaysia, as he returns home for the first time in 25 years. There's a lot of things that we cover in this film, like nostalgia, returning home, but also what deforestation and logging can have an impact on a community.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get involved with the family? And at what point did you say, okay, let's film this and let's make a movie?
Well, I was working on another documentary about fruit, and we were trying to find a group of people who still subsisted on wild fruits, and that was actually really hard to find. And then I read about the Penan tribe, and then these other journalists were like, there's this guy in Montreal who's like from there. You should talk to him. And so the film crew went off and filmed with his tribe, and then I was showing him the footage. I was just like working as like a assistant editor basically, and I was showing him the footage, and he's like, that's my home, and I haven't been back for 25 years. And then he tells me a bit about his crazy story and how he got to Canada, and he said he was going back this summer, and I thought I would just come for the summer to make a little short or something. It was my first film.
Yeah.
But then it just grew, and I got to know the community really well. I saw that there was a great story there. We started getting funding for it, and so then it became something bigger. Now it's 5 years later. I've gone to Borneo 4 times for over a month each time. And it's the end of a really long journey and a beginning of a new one, because it premieres tomorrow.
So at what point, I guess I'm curious as to how it all came together. I mean, you spoke to Mutang?
Yes.
And he basically told you his story. At what point did you kind of lock in to say, wow, this is what our movie is going to be? Because it's less, the start is about his journey home and the nostalgia of coming home, but it really became more of a political issue later on. Was that planned beforehand? Or
No, it wasn't. So Mutang originally just said, oh, can you come and help me film like the landscape, because I'm worried that it's going to be destroyed and I want to preserve it, kind of archive it. And I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, I guess for the summer, like that's fine. It doesn't sound like a subject of a documentary, but that's fine. But while I was there, I realized that that there was a lot of that it was a very difficult thing for Mutang, like to go back home and see that a lot has changed. The community has changed a lot, and like the head man, he sees a lot of the things that were happening in Canada, like tribes signing away their land without really knowing what was happening. He sees that happening in Malaysia, and he sees that, like, with the perspective he has from being away, he wants to warn people that what the consequences could be for his tribe in Sarawak.
Yeah, and that kind of snuck up on you. As
It snuck up on me. So the film did evolve. I didn't start planning to make a film that centered so much about the struggles of this one community. But when I got back there, it became obvious that was the more complex and the less superficial story.
Okay, and so then what we saw was one trip, or you said you went back 4 times?
I went back 4 times, actually. In the film, we condensed it, and we showed 2 trips.
Okay.
But I went back 4 times, sometimes for research, and yeah.
Okay, so so you went full board into this.
I went full board into it. It's changed my life. Like, now I work with an NGO that Mutang works with, the Calio Conservation, that works on conserving the land and culture for this group of this tribe.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the I guess the tensions going on there. So it's, I guess I would liken this to, you mentioned Canadian Native Americans there and Native Americans here.
Yeah.
It's that fight between the First World wanting to take over and then the tribes who have basically lived on this land for a long time is it that they're trying to keep the land, or they're trying to preserve the land?
So it's not, right. I guess, like, it's very mixed now. They're not a unified voice of what the indigenous people want to do, and I think my film presents that, because you see Mutang, who wants to preserve the land, preserve it for hunting, preserve the historical sites. And then you see his cousin Morris, who wants to introduce development projects because he thinks that it's better than the community getting nothing. At least if the community is profiting off of the development, then that's better. They have to enter the modern world too. So it's not like, even Mutang, he's not against development per se. He's just against indigenous people not having rights to their land and not having the autonomy to decide how that development will happen.
Okay. And so, I mean, the land is being, I guess things that I caught was lumber, building materials, and then just, I guess, modernization.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's mostly lumber extraction. There's also the threat of this, which I didn't really follow in the film, but there's a threat of a hydroelectric dam project that will flood the area.
Oh.
Yeah, but the information on that was so hard to get solid information on that I didn't cover that in the film. But there's a lot of environmental threats, but mostly it's just like, modernization. A lot of the young people are moving to the cities, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not like, but it does mean that Mutang's really focused on making sure that the young people in his community are proud of their culture, because that can produce like good self-esteem for marginalized people.
One of the things that occurs, and I was curious about, was I guess he called it mapping trips.
Mutang wanted to map out the historical, like the old burial sites and the old longhouses, because then you can prove that this is our traditional land. So he's trying to prove that they have native customary rights to the land, so that loggers can't just go in and destroy whatever they want to. And actually, so those mapping trips that we went on, afterwards, we've now also made an interactive web project. So you can see some of the results of that work in this really interactive 3D, it's like Google Earth view almost, where you can see the locations, and then you can click on things, and then there's animated myths that go with the locations. So that project has actually become something even bigger. But within the film, the logging project, the mapping project, was really a way of trying to prove that they have rights over the land.
Right, and to draw lines and create, make distinct territories, so to speak.
Yes.
So what is happening now since the film has come out?
Yeah, since the film has come out, there's a court case that we followed in the film where the indigenous groups were trying to say that they have rights over the land. And that's why Mutang was doing the mapping, to be like, we have historical rights to this land. That court case, unfortunately, for the last I heard, did not succeed.
Yeah.
So I think the community is quite upset about that, and they're trying to find ways to move forward with that. But there's still development in the area. It's a long, hard struggle.
Yeah,
and
and there's a sense of this kind of David versus Goliath thing.
Yeah, that's it. With most activists, I guess, like the film kind of shows what you're willing to, if you're willing to like work a lifetime on something that never will really that's really hard to achieve.
Okay, so let's talk about filmmaking a little bit here.
Okay.
You were there originally to film just the landscape, and it's very beautiful. I mean, you're going down small rivers and rapids. So what were some of the challenges in filming? And I guess the other was, what kind of equipment were you using?
Yeah, no, this was a crazy project to film. I am so grateful to my cinematographer, Vincent Gunville. He's very adventurous. He came with me. The first time I went, I had no money. No, not much experience.
So
this
is
is
a
my
project
first
of
film.
faith here.
It's such a project of faith. But we went and we planned it intensely, because there's no electricity there. There's no running water. You saw some of the trips we went down on the river. There's big rapids, and Vincent's like trying to keep stable while going on down these traditional canoes down these rapids. So it's really an athletic feat, to be honest. And logistically, it was challenging. Like, we figured out later that we needed to bring small generators, because otherwise we could not
These
charge
cameras
our
don't work.
batteries.
Yeah.
But we filmed with a lot of different cameras. So the first trip I filmed with a 5D Mark III, and then that was when, and then I got more of a budget, and then we filmed with the C300 and the SF7.
So as you're bringing footage back, you're getting more and more backers to help you out.
Exactly.
All
It's hard when you're a first-time filmmaker to get backers until you show them some of your work.
Yeah, I guess. And then the family itself, Mutang. I mean, he lives in Canada. He has a Canadian family. What can you tell us about that family and their experiences with their father? I mean, basically, at this point, the only thing they know of their father's past is what he's told them.
Exactly. So yeah, the film follows his daughter and son and his wife. His daughter is actually the narrator of the film, and they had heard stories about Kelabit culture and about what it's like, but they've never experienced it before. So that was a big thing for everybody in his family. And sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and then how about for you? Just the experience of. Are you from Canada then?
I am from Canada, but my parents are from Vietnam.
Okay.
And I think that's why originally the story kind of resonated with me, because he told me he was bringing back his family, and his daughter's 14, the same age I was when I went back to Vietnam for the first time. And I know what it's like to, meet relatives you've never met before. See this culture that's like kind of vaguely familiar, but so different from what you grew up with.
Yeah.
And have these experiences that just enlarge your worldview.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you point out is, it was just him in Canada.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to his village, and it's this large family.
Yeah, that's right. And unlike, myself, who's Vietnamese, there's a Vietnamese community in Canada. There's no Kelabit community in Canada. There's maybe one other Kelabit person, maybe. I don't really know. And he doesn't have any other Kelabit friends. So he really had to assimilate. Like, what would it be like to be the only one of your culture in a different country?
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
So, let's see. So, what is your message for the film? What is the thing that you want audiences to get from it?
I think this film is not it's not a very, how would you say it, dogmatic film. Like, it's not, I'm not trying to say a very
this is the viewpoint.
Yeah.
This is what we're trying to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to show people some of the lived experiences of this tribe, of this group of people, the Kelabit. And I guess to show like modernization, and those, these big words like modernization, deforestation, and loss of indigenous cultures, and make it very accessible, and for people to see put a human face to that, and to see what the effects are on this community through following Mutang and this personal journey of him going home and trying to find out this slippery idea of home.
And then what does it mean for you to be here at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival?
Well, it's huge. I mean, tomorrow is the first screening of this film ever. So that's really big. It's my first film, and so I'm just really excited, and I'm having a lot of fun. And it means a lot to be featured in an Asian-specific film festival, because like so much of the themes in the film are about cultural preservation, and that is paramount in this festival.
Yeah.
About a lot of what Mutang cares about too is not so much preserving the culture, but also making sure that the people have a sense of dignity and pride for their culture, and that is something that is important to me growing up as an Asian Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, even as an Asian American, there's a level of urgency to preserve the stories of our heritage.
Yeah.
And that's definitely happening here, and I think that was also another impetus for Mutang wanting you to film in his village. Okay.
That was, yes, that's
well,
true.
congratulations.
Thank
and
you
thank
very
you.
much.
All right.